Welcome to chapter 17. So we have frequently already discussed instructive forms with n in previous chapters. Now we're going to look at collective numerals formed with this instructive n. The usage of these is hard to explain to monolingual English speakers because English doesn't have anything like this. But if you speak German, for example, you know verbal forms like zu zweit, you know what we're talking about. That a lot of European languages have these too. It's just English that doesn't. They are basically adverbial forms of numbers saying in a group of how many people you carried out an action. And here they are formed by taking the long form of the cardinal number and attaching the instructive n to it, which is equivalent in its linking processes to the genitive n. Got to be careful with to, because here the form is kokten and not koketen, which would be the regular form. But after this, it proceeds more or less regularly, more or less, because once we get to 10, there's another oddity happening. In 10, it's luwen rather than just lun. So we need a linking vowel here. Yeah. And these collective forms, they can also be formed from other quantifiers like shuko, many, shuken, shagal, few, shagalen, minyare, how many, minyaren. Yeah. And yeah, they're tricky to translate into English, but yeah. So yeah, verbal derivation. We're going to look at another one. We have derivational suffix l forms first conjugation verbs that are frequentative, doing something repeatedly. Ishtash, to do something once. Ishtalash, to do something repeatedly. Chongeshtash, to fly. Chongeshtalash, to fly around, to flutter around. Tarvanash, to move. Tarvanalash, to move around. Shindash, to put. Shindalash, like to arrange or something like that, like doing something over and over again. Yeah, and here we can see a usage example of the suffix. If we have, for example, a new baby that we have to give a name, I could say, I'm calling this baby Yevdokia. But if I, for example, have a bunny rabbit, and as Mars do, I have all kinds of different names that I give it. These are all names used for rabbits in Mari. Then this process here is lumdash, naming something, giving something a name. And this lumdalash is naming things, a process of giving things many names. And much like in English, to call somebody names has a secondary meaning of to tease somebody, to make fun of somebody by finding mean things to call them. Lumdalash has this meaning too, but lumdash does not. Like also in English, to name somebody, that does not have this pejorative meaning. Okay. Another quick look at the usage of the passive participle as a verbal noun, and now with temporal postpositions. If we are imagining, for example, let's start with a noun. We have a party, a pairem, and we want to say before the party, pairem dec oncic, during the party, pairem godem, and after the party, pairem dec vara. It's all more or less straightforward. We take our noun and we have the postpositions that we attach to them afterwards. But what if we're talking about not about a party, but about sleeping? Well, same postpositions, but we want to put the to sleep in here. And what do we do if we want to stick a verb into a slot that's usually meant for a noun? We make a passive participle. There we go. But we can also then attach a possessive suffix to the passive participle. If you want to say before my sleeping, during my sleeping, after my sleeping, etc. Yeah. For these, the temporal structuring that we can do here, before X, during X, after X, we also actually have some converbs with which we can express this, but we'll get to those in later chapters. Yeah, here are just some usage examples. And a quick note. So as you can see with these temporal postpositions that we have here, dec oncic before dec vara, literally this from before, from after. These are compound postpositions consisting of the actual postposition dec and this other element. What if we want to say by what amount of time before or after something? Well, we've got two options here. If we say 2 hours before finishing the work, pasham petareme, and then dec oncic is before, we can either put it between the dec and the oncic, dec kok shagat oncic, or we can put the whole thing before the participle serving as a verb or not. Both work. Okay, you might have been wondering all along, why are we talking about simple past tense forms? Are there not non-simple past tense forms? Yes, there are. There are the compound past tenses, 4 of them in total. And compound means these are periphrastic constructions. You form them using using the tool sets that you already know, but putting them together in new and systematic ways. If we take the present tense forms and we put ille, was, in the simple past tense one after it, we get the compound past tense one. And this is systematically always how this is formed. You take the present tense form, positive or negative, and you put ille afterwards. So the formation here, if you can do the present tense, it's not very difficult. Yeah, and second conjugation, there's nothing tricky going on here. And even with to be, if you can form the forms of to be, you can form these forms. The usage of this one, it is fairly comparable in its basic usage to English used to forms. It's an habitual past tense form. It refers to something that happened repeatedly in the past or over a long time period in the past. I used to love going into the forest. I used to love my aunt's singing, or the singing of my aunt and her friends. I used to go into the forest every day. Something that you do repeatedly over and over again, or something that you did over a long time period at some point in the past. It can also be used if you have a background that is an action that was interrupting. Like I was reading a book, and while this was happening, my brother came in into the room and interrupted it. Yeah. Okay, we have seen spectral auxiliaries before. This is my favorite topic. How we can have phrases where we have, for example, like here, fighting lie, kedal, the converb of to fight, fighting, and then kiash, to lie, and it just means then to fight over a long time period. We're having another look at these here. What could these pairings mean? And think about like live, what could this indicate? Well, long, that something long lasts for a long time. So here we've got a bunch of imperfective markers, things that indicate that something lasts for a long time. Like shoneni lash, thinking live, just thinking something over, pondering it, really letting it go through your head, etc. And then we have a bunch of markers that go in the other direction. They make verbs more perfective. Like yulash, to burn, yulenkayash, to burning go. That just means to burn to the ground, to burn up, to burn till there's nothing left, to really do the job of burning till there's nothing else to burn. Or to drinking scent, that says drink something, bottles up, drink up until there's nothing left to drink. Yeah, so you can make this basic distinction between spectral modifiers that either make things more imperfective or more perfective. But if this was already a two-way, a binary thing where these are the only directions you could go, we would not need the dozens of a spectral modifier auxiliaries, and we have dozens of spectral auxiliaries. We will, over the course of especially later chapters, look at individual auxiliaries and look at exactly what their function is. Words and words usage, what have we got? With the stem lish, near, münder, far, and the noun körger, the inside. Yeah, with the first two, we have two stems where the forms are the forms created on their basis use the unproductive suffixes that we have looked at in the past. With körger, we use the productive suffixes. And these are very frequently used spatial adverbs that you should know. Maybe have some usage example. And yeah, postpositional usage is possible, but it's a bit tricky because usually you use them as compound postpositions when you do this in combination with ditch. Adjectives with the dative, as I mentioned in a previous chapter when looking at Poyan, we have a number of adjectives in Mari that co-occur with dative forms, like Mariel toleralan, Poyan Mariel is rich to the forest, literally, with the dative. Or if you say useful, useful for what? Dative. Talented, talented at what? Dative. Just some adjectives where you have to accept this. Animal names, animal genders, animal young that we have we'll have a look at. The word awa, mother, is also used in Maori to mean female for an animal. The word acha, father, is not. So there's a distinction here. We have for the male side of things, we have an own word uzo, which means male for animals. And then we have the word ige for an animal young. And if we've got a duck family, for example, the forms would be awa ludo, mother duck, uzo ludo, the male duck, and then lud ige, going back to ludo ige for the duckling. Notice the difference in the word ordering here, that awa and uzo precede the animal name that they modify, while ige follows it. It's systematically like this. Okay, kuanash, yivatash, to be happy. These are fairly synonymous. I say fairly synonymous. When I say fairly synonymous, I mean that if there are differences between these, I can't tell you what they are. Just to be happy, to rejoice. This gets us to the text. And now, well, last week we heard that the COPIUS are heading out to the countryside. And now we see we have the story of their arrival at the countryside, which grandfather is very happy about because he has new farmhands. This is very close to life, that a lot of Maoris who live in Yoshkaula, they will go to their respective villages in the summer, and they will not spend the whole summer just relaxing. There's a lot of work to do in the countryside. Go back a few weeks and watch the video Kurort and read the text as a reminder of this. Okay, so then you've got some exercises as per usual, and as the song of the week, we've got another classic. Avtobus vashkashot mojalish, the bus rushes to my native village. This is another one of these songs that the Maoris, that a lot of Maoris know the lyrics for by heart, and in collective singing, which is especially popular in a bus, and well, what better context for this song than a bus? This song is going to come up. So if you like studying lyrics, this is a good song to learn. Okay, then see you next week when we learn more about what is happening in the village, in the countryside.